Something that you might not know is that parts of Mississippi used to belong to Spanish-occupied Florida, the very same Spanish Florida that was home to Fort Mose and to Negro Fort, two fortifications used in the era of slavery by mainly free black troops with an interesting past. The entire border between Spanish Florida and the U.S. was settled by English-speaking black soldiers, most of whom the Spanish lured away from their American enslavers to the north. The Spanish government offered any enslaved person in the U.S. a gun to point at their enslavers if they ran south and agreed to become Catholic border enforcers loyal to the Spanish crown. As you can imagine, swaths of enslaved people ran not north, but south to freedom. One of these places was called Fort Nogales from 1790 in modern-day Vicksburg, Mississippi, right here along the border. Now, this is such an interesting part of our history of slavery that never gets talked about in school. Tens of thousands of enslaved black people in the U.S. earned their freedom in this way, working as Spanish soldiers in the colonial borderlands, tasked with defending colonies from American invasion. So recently, I became a consulting party for a grant written by park rangers working at the Vicksburg National Cemetery. Some black Civil War graves had been disturbed in a landslide and needed to be reburied. As they moved the remains, they found something amazing. Alongside artifacts from the Civil War, the soldiers had been buried on land that contained artifacts from the Fort Nogales era. So this right here is a pony bead, which dates generally from 1776 to 1810, and it was used for trade by Choctaw with settler populations, which suggests interactions between colonial Spanish soldiers and the Choctaw who controlled the region when it was called Fort Nogales. Here's another piece from that era, possibly a fragment of a copper dish made from what is called blue pearlware that was used by soldiers of Spanish Florida for eating and drinking. This hand-forged nail here was made from wrought iron with what is called a rose head, and an artifact like this spans both the Fort Nogales era as well as the era immediately after, when the town became Vicksburg in 1811.